Hey everyone, it's Wasabi and welcome back. This is the Pulsar ES FS-1 developed with Vaxee, and I've got some mixed feelings about it. Because the most exciting part about this release might just be the Link 8K dongle. For the mouse itself, if you've ever used the ZOWIE FK2, you're gonna look at this and go like, this is basically that. There are subtle differences though, but it's not a bad thing. The FK2 is a classic shape in gaming mice history. I am just surprised that with Vaxee and Pulsar on the same project, I'm surprised that they didn't swing harder and create something remarkable. Because this one, the concept and the racing theme just feels very forgettable, and I don't know why they are using a theme of a completely different sport for an esports product, but you know, okay, it's up to them. Now let's take a brief look at what they're selling with this one. First, the FK style shape, so it's a low profile symmetrical shape with a very low hump. This is a classic competitive icon, but just keep in mind that it's not a one-to-one clone of the FK shape. The shape here has been tweaked a little bit. You also got a silver alloy wheel, which is supposedly engineered for ultimate tactile response and high-speed navigation, but this one is a little disappointing, but let's move on for now. And then for the performance tech, you got the Pulsar FS-1 sensor, the Pulsar optical switches. This one is 8K ready, so it's basically got what Pulsar uses for the standard mice, but with a TTC gold encoder instead of the Pulsar blue encoder. Then you got the tournament control dongle that lets you manage profiles and adjust the DPI from the dongle itself. This one lets you customize one of the buttons. So inside the box, you get the FS-1 mouse, the Link 8K dongle, a USB-C cable, a quick start guide, collector's card, Pulsar sticker, and that is pretty much all that's included inside the box. The stated weight on the website is 56 plus minus 2 grams, and here on my scale, it weighs in at 58.3 grams. Uh-oh. Now about the design, this is the first mouse from Pulsar's new ES refresh. And the whole line has this F1 racing inspiration theme. There is a new aluminum wheel design, and instead of launching in black, it's a deep navy blue. No OLED screen on the bottom, by the way, and the button under the mouse is a DPI and power button. For build quality, this one is a 10 out of 10. The mouse feels absolutely solid as heck. The main body feels super strong. The fitment of all the buttons and scroll wheel is very well done, and the materials just feel very thick. It is a mouse that feels super well put together. For the coating, the grip is decent once my hands get warm, but it's the kind of coating that when you grab it, you kind of feel like 50-50 on your grip on the mouse. And because this is a serious esports mouse, the coating matters a lot, and this one feels like it could use more grip. Now the start skates are fantastic. They feel like the newer Vaxee style skates that they use for their lineup. It breaks in good time and a little smoother and faster than Pulsar's usual opaque white skates. I'd say these skates are a good decision for this mouse. Now before I get into the shape and how it feels from my experience, to put things into perspective, my hand size is 17.5 by 9. Now first, on paper, the FS-1 sits almost exactly in the FK2 territory. So 124 by 64 by 37 millimeters versus FK2's 125 by 65 by 36 millimeters. So it's basically the same footprint but slightly smaller and with a slightly taller hump. And in the hand, it feels very familiar, but it's not like a one-to-one carbon copy. Now about the ergonomics, the waist, it is still narrow and the hump is still relatively low compared to a GPX style shape. So the FS-1 still doesn't feel your hand the way a Superlight does. But the extra millimeter of height and the smoother rear curve makes the FS-1 feel more usable for the claw or even the relaxed claw grip compared to the FK2 DW. The design of the FK2 always felt more like a pure fingertip or aggressive claw grip mouse to me, and this one here feels more adaptable. And just to be clear, if you never liked the FK2 shape before, you probably won't suddenly love this one because the core DNA is still there. For me, I didn't like the FK2 DW mainly because of the weight. It felt too heavy for a low profile mouse like that. This FS-1 being lighter definitely makes it easier to handle, but honestly, I still think it could do with a few grams less. And that's what makes this style shine in both fast and slow paced FPS in my opinion. Because when you go really lightweight on a low profile shape, that's when it starts to feel effortless, and that's what makes this style shine in both fast and slow paced FPS in my opinion. Now here's a quick sound test to give you a better idea of how this mouse sounds. Okay, about the main buttons, this is the best Pulsar optical switch implementation I've tried. If you didn't tell me that these were optical switches, I would have probably assumed that these were mechanical because the tactility and feedback under my fingertips is that good. And I'm not hearing that metallic optical ping. If you hold the mouse up to your ear, sure you'll hear it, but in real use, it's basically non-existent. If I had to pick between mechanical and optical, I would usually choose mechanical, but if it's optical switches that felt like this all the time, I wouldn't mind using either one. Still a strong preference for mechanical though. The side buttons, they feel really good. You got satisfying clicks, super tactile, almost zero pre-travel, and just a tad bit of post-travel. They are tuned really well. It's not too light and not too stiff, and my favorite part is that it's not obnoxiously loud. And honestly, I think the side buttons here feel a little more satisfying than the ones on Vaxee mice that I've reviewed before. Okay, I'm not a fan of this scroll wheel in general. It reminds me a bit of the Viper Mini Signature Edition wheel. It feels very thin and it's very light to scroll. There really isn't much resistance between steps, so the bumps feel very muted, and it's great for spam scrolling, but if you want to scroll accurately and land the exact number of steps, this is really not ideal. And because it's so light, I do occasionally accidentally scroll when I'm trying to click down on the wheel. For the scroll click, it feels fine. You just need a moderate amount of force, and the wheel is pretty flat, which makes it easy to press down. But even so, the resistance of the encoder is a little too light. While the design looks interesting, it doesn't benefit the user much because as soon as a wheel gets a bit dirty, oily, or sweaty, it gets pretty slippery. And honestly, Pulsar's older, thicker aluminum wheel from the previous ES lineup makes a way better scroll wheel for gaming than what they put here. Connectivity wise, you get up to 8K wireless and 8K wired as well, and no Bluetooth. For the battery life, you get 160 hours at what I assume to be 1000 Hz pulling rate. It's got a 400 mAh battery and optimized firmware that really gets the most out of a single charge. And in this mouse, you got Pulsar's FS-1 sensor. Performance has been alright for me. I only experienced some weird cursor jumps not too long after changing the pulling rate settings, but after that, during use, there is no weird tracking issues. Now for the Link 8K dongle. By default, the left button on the dongle cycles through 4 profiles, each represented by a color on the LED. In the web-based software, you can change what the left button does or even set it to nothing if you're worried about accidentally changing the settings. And for the right button, it cycles through DPI levels, and that is a button that you cannot reprogram. Now, Bibimbap is Pulsar's web configurator, and I'll be real, Pulsar's software over the years has felt like it kept changing between releases, like they haven't fully settled on one identity yet. So that is something that I hope improves over time. But anyway, this is the software that you use to set up your mouse settings, program the buttons, change your DPI, pulling rates, lift-off distance, angle rotation, and such. And of course, unique to this mouse coming from the ES line, you got more options to select for the dongle experience and what it does. Basically, a web-based software that offers a full suite of settings that you would expect from a high-end gaming mouse today. Alright, so for fast-paced tracking games like Overwatch 2 or the finals, the FS-1 feels okay. It doesn't feel twitchy and it doesn't have that floaty sensation, but it still feels a little too dense for the shape. Flicking feels quick to start and clean to recover. It snaps, it resets fast, and you can commit to a shot without the mouse feeling sluggish on the return. It is not a mouse that makes stopping power feel locked in by force. It's more like you stop clean because the whole handling feels consistent and easy to control. Now, micro is where I feel the FS-1 shape is genuinely strong. The FK2, which is what this mouse is based on, is a shape that is great for micro corrections, and that quality is still present in this updated design. Those tiny corrections after a flick, you feel well in control for a mouse of this size. So this mouse is great if you want to keep your crosshair in check without overcorrecting. Fatigue over long sessions, I'd say is pretty low. If you hold this one with a claw or palm grip, it is quite alright. If you do use a fingertip grip on this one though, it can feel pretty tiring after a few hours. Again, this mouse feels rather dense even though it's just under 60 grams, but I do feel some inertia as I'm flicking this mouse around, so I still think a few grams less would unlock the absolute best version of this experience, but as it is right now, it is comfortable enough. And I've had to summarize it. For tactical FPS, this mouse feels more at home here, and for tracking heavy games, it's totally usable, but just not a mouse that I would buy if I only played the finals or Apex, for example. The FS-1 feels planted and confident on the pad, so you're not fighting shakiness, and you also don't feel stuck in one hand position. So mid-fight, if you need to make a small adjustment, maybe a grip shift, a finger correction, a quick reposition, this shape allows that, but not to the extent that it makes it a great pick for tracking heavy games. So the verdict is the build is excellent and the receiver is genuinely interesting, though I think it can do with more material because it feels very light and plasticky for a high-end mouse. And for the mouse, 56 grams, well, 58 grams is okay for most people buying Razer, Logitech or ZOWIE. It's definitely not a mouse for people who get winded shaking a box of Tic Tacs. But I do feel that reducing the weight a little more can bring out the best of a shape like this. Maybe at least be 52 grams without the Pulsar plus minus whatever. Now I understand Pulsar's whole marketing by calling their ES line refresh the new standard. Maybe new standard for Pulsar regarding their build quality and click experience, but I would not go as far as to say that this feels like the new standard for the industry, so just keep that in mind. The FS-1 is a good mouse and I don't hate the FK shape, I just know that I much prefer using others, and for the FS-1 I kind of feel the same way about it. I don't mind it, but it's definitely not my first pick, and it's not because it's a low profile. I love the Final Mouse UR-X shape, the G-Wolves HTX Ultra 8K as well, but this just doesn't stick for me. So anyway, thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed the video or found it helpful, please leave a like and subscribe to support my channel, and I guess I'll see you in the next one.